it was key for me to actually look at a legacy business. I think one of the things that people kept telling me was, you're always building for your South Bombay self. So Scootsie and what I was doing with Ghana and what I was doing with, it's constantly building for you.
Sure.
I had to get out of my comfort zone and say, while we're seeing this huge kind of surge in the economy now compared to where we were, see the growth coming from small town India. And the platform obviously has to assist with this next wave of both consumerism that's happening and also growth that's happening on a massive scale. So it satiated that need to kind of do something that had an impact and had a legacy business.
Hi, and welcome to Big Food Energy, a podcast that spotlights some of the most exciting food businesses in India and around the world. Today, I have three very exciting guests who are helping solve one of the hospitality industry's biggest issues, labor. Calm.com is an industry-backed staffing and employment platform for the hospitality sector that has been co-built with pioneers of the industry. The platform offers employment opportunities as well as skilling, training, and financial inclusion to the communities that they engage with. Today, I'm chatting with co-founders Rishi Khiani, Karan Khetarpal, and Rachel Goenka to understand the magnitude of the problem that they're solving and its solution, Calm.com. Hi, Rishi, Rachel, and Karan. Welcome to Big Food Energy.
Hey, Smita. Thanks for having us.
Hi, Smita.
Good to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm very excited about this conversation today. So let's start with what is Calm and what does it do?
Yeah. So just a little bit of background. Prior to Calm, I had a company called Scootsie that was a delivery company. And while I was building that out, we figured that the biggest gaps that was in the manpower space, especially if you were interfacing with a lot of the restaurants. It was a common conversation that we had was, do you know people? And a lot of the people within the industry who I worked with identified that there was a skill gap and that there was also a demand. There was not a demand gap, but there was a supply gap. And so with that background, when I wanted to build something in recruitment, the category that I felt needed the most kind of work on was the hospitality category, and that's why we started. So Calm as a platform is at the core a job marketplace. We work with partners like the NRAI and the various organizations to identify positions across the board. So it's horizontal when it comes to the job roles, but vertical when it comes to the industry focus.
Right.
And everything from your fresh people who are first-time job seekers who are looking at getting into the industry to people who are seasoned professionals who've been in the industry for a while actually can use the platform and find jobs that are right for them. We've also made it hyperlocal in many ways. So, post-pandemic, we saw that a lot of the job force wanted to work close to where they lived, and vice versa. And so the platform today, allows you to look at jobs that are in your vicinity or in your preferred neighborhood, and you can actually apply for it. We also have some bit of skilling that we do on the application, primarily for the new entrants. So, for them to understand, what's the core of my job going to be like? Is there a career pathway? And what does that entail? And so we have a video-based platform that's a learning management system that shows you various things from your front of house, your culinary skills, mixology. And the goal over a period of time is to expand, our offering to kind of then have an offline approach also, where we will do some bit of skilling. We'll do some sort of identification for what a person's core skills are, where they would thrive. And the financial inclusion is a large part of what we believe is today lacking in most job portals and most applications. And we've started a pilot with a few of our partners. But it's still, I would say, a work in progress. But at the core today, we are a job marketplace for hospitality.
Right. Okay. And Rachel and Karan, of course, you have lots of experience running restaurants. Could you talk to me about why was there a need to create something like this for the hospitality industry? Rishi talked about it a little bit, but I'd love to hear your perspectives.
Yeah.
Please.
So as part of NRAI, and this was actually something that we were talking about pre-pandemic. So towards the end of 2019, we were all discussing about how there's this huge gap in the market where employment is concerned, and I think matching was a big one. Most of the times you find with restaurants, you tend to sort of it's either poaching, which was a huge problem for everybody involved, and or it's a word of mouth. And these were basically the only two ways we sort of had access to anybody from the industry. So we said we need to create some form of employment platform in order to sort of solve this problem, and that's where Rishi came in. And it's sort of it's streamlining employment in a big way, and also where the skilling is concerned, it's sort of catering. The skilling is catered specifically towards restaurants, because otherwise you have most of the guys coming out of hotel schools, which is very different from the way
Right.
restaurants are run.
Okay, cool. So how would you say it's different for someone listening in, who has no background, no understanding of the restaurant industry? How is it different from a hotel versus a standalone
So if you
restaurant?
think about the skilling part of it, just in terms of time and access,
Hmm.
it's a lot more expensive, first of all, to go to hotel school. Whereas in restaurants, there are so many different levels when you hire. You're not just talking about a head chef or a very senior chef or somebody from front of house or a GM. You're also talking about the guys, at a level down, whether it's your commie ones, your commie twos, your KST staff, your utility guys. So you need to be thinking about those also. But if there's no skilling and there's no training available for them, there's no certification available for them, then how do they also move up? How do they gain access to restaurants as well? So with hotels, there's always a program that will link them to some other place where they move on. You have internships,
Right.
which is part of your course. With restaurants, it's so sort of fragmented. There's no really a restaurant training school that you can go to. So this is where we were trying to solve
Right.
for and make it very specific to the restaurant industry.
Right. I mean, there's obviously a clear need. But if you could walk me through what does recruitment look like for the hospitality industry, considering it spans blue and white collar roles, how do you find good people to work at your restaurants?
So I'm happy to take that one. Again, just as you know, Rachel's a restaurateur, Rishi is the entrepreneur who's done Scootsie, etc. I had no formal background in the hospitality industry. In fact, my only exposure is through our investments via our family office into the restaurant business. So, looking at it from somebody who's completely new to the process, as Rachel was saying, typically you would either go via poaching, word of mouth, or through a recruitment agent. And it's still very fragmented. There is a huge disconnect when it comes to identifying opportunities and matching them with candidates. Just to put some statistics in front of you, the hospitality industry employs about 40 million people across India. It's the second largest employer in India. That's almost 10% of the national workforce. This is split about, I'd say, about 30, 32 million in the hotel industry and about 8 to 10 million people in the restaurant part of the business.
Right.
So, as Rachel is saying, you do have hotel management schools and you do have catering college, but that's just for one small sliver. We don't have 10 million grads coming out of IHMs every year. And we also face a constant problem of churn, whereby people do seek employment opportunities overseas. We do see a lot of our cream move for better opportunities in Europe, Canada, US, anywhere, you name it. So it does become a perennial problem. So if, for example, you look at an average restaurant that employs, let's say, 20 people, every month you are trying to replace 2 to 3 people of your workforce. That's actually 10 to 15% if you think about it in percentage
That's
terms.
insane.
So there is a perennial problem. And what unfortunately happens is there's no tech-driven solution today out there specifically addressing this need. So the opportunity is large enough, but any new entrant into this industry will only look to his neighbors. So there's no place you can go and put up. As Rishi was saying, we are hyper local. We can, advertise for jobs as per geographies, as per price range, as per position, etc. And as we go deeper into the product, we'll explain all these features to you. But the long and short of it today, blue, gray, and white collar, hospitality employs across the spectrum. So, as Rachel was saying, the kitchen stewarding team or the housekeeping team are one of the most critical elements to running a restaurant. Your head chef can take a day off, but if you have nobody to wash the dishes, you can't run your restaurant, right? We see problems at that end of the spectrum, and then at the other end of the spectrum, we are hiring, marketing personnel. As digital marketing has evolved so intensely over the last couple of years, this has been a new crop of skills that have emerged in this industry as well. People, mixologists, as Rishi was saying, that's again a very critical part today. And setting your beverage program right is a success factor today. So these jobs have all evolved over a period of time, and there's no one platform that necessarily brings all these opportunities together. So somebody sitting in the Northeast does not understand that, okay, there is a job out in Bangalore that I can access, or somebody who's working in Delhi who wants to shift to Maharashtra for whatever reason does not know what's out there, specific to his requirement. So that's the problem we are choosing to solve, and I think even if we crack a small percentage of that problem, it's going to help a lot of people.
So, in some of the research that I was doing before this podcast, I came across an article that said that the hospitality industry has witnessed an unprecedented demand that's and you're facing over about 60% of a demand supply gap. Obviously, the industry has bounced back since COVID, but why is there such a big demand supply gap, and why does it exist? I know that you said that people move on and they, attrition is a big problem, but is that the only reason, or is there a larger reason?
So I think we can all chime in because we've all kind of seen firsthand how this has affected the industry. Obviously, the pandemic didn't help. Having a large part of the migratory workforce coming in from small town India and then moving to urban metros, and having to suddenly find their livelihood taken away from them led to some level of distrust. There's obviously, once that happens, you tend to shy away from coming back into the same industry.
Yeah.
I think that was the first kind of issue that we had way back when we were building this out. Revenge consumerism is absolutely real. We're seeing this. We're seeing more and more new restaurants open up. And I think post-pandemic, what happened was there was a clear gap between the demand and supply. Restaurateurs were still looking at filling positions that were there, and while people were coming back in droves, you were seeing that they were in short supply when it came to manpower and stuff like that. Places like Goa, have become suddenly these tourist hubs where you're seeing massive inflow of tourism again. And therefore, every week you'll see that there's a new restaurant, a new place, new theme that's opening up. And, where they're going to get people from? Obviously, they're going to get it from the towns like Mumbai, and you'll see that a lot of locals prefer not to work within Goa itself. So even when they're hiring, they're looking at states like Bihar, and they're looking at the Northeast, and they're looking at neighboring states. And so the demand and supply, there is a delta today. Karan will also elaborate a little bit more on this.
Yeah, so two major things, at least in my opinion. One is during the pandemic, like take a restaurant, a mid-sized restaurant chains like such as ours, right? I mean, small to mid-size. Pre-pandemic, we employed 498 people, 500 people. Post-pandemic, despite the tailwinds of the revenge spend that we were talking about, we've never crossed 360, 370 people for the same level of business. We've not shut down anything during the pandemic. In fact, we've opened a couple of more outlets, but we all learned to do more with less. And that discipline is something that is important for the long-term survival of any organization. But more importantly, what happened during the pandemic, a lot of people did go back to their native states, switch to ancillary, less cyclical industries. They found more security, better timings, better work-life balance, or whatever it sort of motivated them. And that is a reality we have to choose to acknowledge, right? There are issues in any industry, but as far as the hospitality goes, timings are difficult. You don't really get a meaningful time off, especially at your early years and your foundation years. You are burning the candle at both ends. So I think the pandemic did open a lot of people out to alternative sources of employment, which is something that we've not really managed to reverse. And that's also manifested itself in data points like, the IHMs having all-time low enrollments in the last year or two, right? Now, Calm, as a proponent of the industry, it is incumbent upon us also to highlight the positives. So we are building in, like Rishi is saying, the kind of guardrails. Financial inclusion, if we talk about that for a moment, we've built in early salary benefits, early wage access. We've given opportunities for people to be insured for as little as 150 rupees a month. So this does improve the attractiveness of working in the hospitality industry, but we do have a long way to go as an industry. But all these factors will explain why the gap does exist. Overlay that with the constant attrition, the churn, the loss of people to overseas opportunities as well as ancillary industries, that gap is always going to be there, especially now when we're so thinly staffed, doing, like I was saying, more with less. That delta will always exist.
Right, sure.
No, I just want to sort of add to what Karan was also saying. What Calm is also doing is, along with NRAI, we're also certifying a lot of people who probably don't have the means to sort of get themselves certified. So, for example, if you take somebody who started off as a dishwasher, and this is something that you see in restaurants all the time, right? Someone starts off as a dishwasher and takes an interest, will slowly start helping out in the kitchen. And that's how people sort of move up in the ranks. But he's never really had any formal training, but he's got a ton of experience. But he's not able to get certified because of that. So that's where sort of Calm comes in, along with NRA, because we recognize that this is a behavior that takes place across all the restaurants, basically. So getting them certified so they are able to sort of ask for a better salary and get better benefits as well.
Understood. And talk to me a little bit about the socioeconomic angle of this. Some years ago in Bangalore, there was some anti-Northeast sentiment, and that led to a whole bunch of people from the community who worked in restaurants to not show up to work. A bunch of restaurants had to close for a few days. Are those things that you're sort of factoring in, or how does a restaurant business, build for something like that, or can you even do that?
It's you can't predict these things. See, we're an employment platform, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the culture that you build.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
with each company, it's the culture that you build, and the fact that we're so sort of customer forward. I think tolerance is something that we anyways is something that we have to have regardless.
I mean, Rishi will be the first one to tell you that, we're trying to democratize job options, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, something's flared up in your town. You don't want to go to work over there. Get on the platform, see what opportunities are out there, and do what you need to do. We've had a very interesting experience where, there's a lot of preference for chefs, particularly from the Northeast, because they are less less sensitive towards handling different kinds of meats.
Mm.
While certain communities will prefer to only be in a veg restaurant or to only handle white meat, we tend to find there's a little more flexibility with the chefs coming out of the Northeast. We get really good Chinese and Pan Asian chefs coming out of West Bengal all the time. And surprisingly, Hyderabad's also a very popular pipeline for that kind of talent. I mean, we're finding all these really random kind of data points that didn't really occur to us.
Yeah.
But I mean, as we are saying, we're a job platform.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow, if there is an issue, get on the platform, look for another opportunity. If you've got a mass exodus of staff, get on the platform, advertise for more jobs.
I think, Rishi, you should talk a little bit about the Kamyabi Center also, and how that has created a sense of support also for people coming into new cities where they don't know anybody.
Yeah, and so for us, this phygital, which is this slightly offline approach, which couples with our technology approach, is needed for a country like India.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times you tend to move from small town to a big town through your referral network, and at the lower end of the spectrum, the kind of jobs you get are typically going to be working in the security department of a company, or within getting a job as a driver, or really starting at the bottom of the pyramid. And what we really want to do is get people who could be even like a 10 standard pass, and identify what are their passion points, what are their skills, what will they thrive in, what are they good at, and then help them with identification of a role where they were most likely to excel in. And so coming fresh off, with just a little bit of a background in what hospitality is, and then understanding, hey, I'm going to be great at front of house, so I have a passion for cooking and I need to get into that space, or there is an opportunity for me in a separate category. All of that happens at the Kamyabi centers. Now, we are in fact starting a pilot, which in partnership with Meera Bhayandar Road. So Karan, and Rachel and I are spearheading these offline centers out there, where we're looking at not just the local populace, but also creating job opportunities within that area.
Fantastic. That sounds super, super exciting. So, we've been talking about this for some time, but if you guys could explain how exactly does it work? Like, if I'm a chef and I'm looking for a job, I open the app, and then what happens?
Well, the man who built it shall be happy to
Yeah,
take
no,
you through
absolutely.
it.
Yeah. So
Don't forget to mention video.
videos there. Yeah, I mean, just because we're not shy, but I think this is the first time that there's been a actual vertical play for the restaurant and the hospitality business, right? So we know that there is the intent is to actually have the people who are downloading the app actively looking for jobs within hospitality. So the first thing you do is you come in and you actually say, you tell us whether you're a fresher or you're experienced. If you're a fresher, there are a few soft skills that you list down, and you're shown jobs that are where they're hiring for fresh talent. If you're an experienced, you typically would put in your wherever you worked in your prior job, and it auto pulls a little bit about the company, various other factors about it, and based on whether you want a job where you are, or you open to relocating, it just then has a stream of jobs that open up that you can apply to. Now, on the demand side, we've created a platform where, because sometimes it isn't always most of the workforce finds it difficult to leave and get into physical interviews, right? So the entire process has been digitized, where you can pre-screen a candidate. You can push in certain questions that you'd want a video response to, and then the candidate can kind of answer at their own time, and we evaluate it using AI, and then based on whether they fit the criteria or not, you then move on to the next level. Within the application, we've built something like Zoom, so you can actually have your entire interview process online, and then post that the actual job offers and everything else also happens through the application. So we've taken it from the point of screening to the point of actual recruitment and onboarding. It's all on the application.
Super. I mean, yes, go on.
I need to add something over here.
Please.
So Smita, when we were saying that, this is something that has been built really with the restaurant industry in mind, we really wanted to address this huge pain point that we constantly face, which is poaching. So one thing that the app has done, which is very different from sort of any other job portal out there, I don't want to name names, obviously, but is that unless you can only basically view a candidate's profile if that candidate applies for a job. So, for example, if I want to hire somebody from a particular company, I can't go and type in the name of that particular restaurant and then get an entire list of people just because they're registered on the platform.
Right.
I'm only as an employer, I'm only able to see candidates who are applying for jobs. Because this is, again, something that we wanted to really, really fix and solve that poaching problem, and just create more and more people out there that had access to the employers rather than the other way around. Because that's another big issue that we keep facing. Unless you know somebody, or you're just lucky enough to sort of get a connect, you would not have access to a lot of the restaurants today or the restaurateurs themselves. So that's another thing that we're trying to solve for.
Understood. And so, if I'm running a restaurant and I sign up on Come, how does that work? Do I input, profiles of people that I'm looking for, and then people can just, apply to these jobs? Or are there any other sort of things that a restaurant would need to provide if they're logging onto Come?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, important for your potential workforce to actually get a bird's eye view of what it's like to work in
Yeah.
that restaurant, right? So on our platform, the profile page actually is an immersive experience. We've got a video that plays out to show you, what the organization looks like, what the current restaurant or hotel looks like. You see benefits. There are pictures from the founders. We have latest news that we aggregate. So if someone's just raised a round of funding and they're hiring, you'll see that news. And so the company page itself is something that we urge a lot of our customers to kind of build out. It leads to better conversions when someone's applying for a job. And then, a large part of this is a self-serve platform. So you'll come in, you'll post your job, you'll find matches, and then once you do that, obviously it's up to you to then interview and schedule it. And the interview can be offline or online. We, for select clients where we know that they want us to handhold them a little more, the problem of plenty seeps in. We actually have something called a recruitment process outsourcing and RPO service, and a high level hiring. So they'll come to us and say, okay, I need either a marketing manager, I need a banquets manager, I need someone X. And our team gets into play using technology again. So we've got a database now of about 300,000 job seekers on the back end. We have access to our own kind of channels that we've created on Telegram, various other supply touch points. And so when this happens, we actually our internal team gets into motion into figuring out where the right candidates are for this particular job, and that's a separate service which is more of an assisted service. The self-serve model is a low cost where someone comes and subscribes to have their profile created for the year. And then the RPO service is something where we get a month's commission for successful placement of a candidate. But we're responsible then to make sure that the candidate also stays. So therefore, the kind of quality of candidate we bring in is something that we kind of look at. We don't want someone coming in where they're going to drop the job in a matter of weeks or a month, because we then tend to kind of lose money also as a business.
Right, right. And then how do you ensure that a candidate who has been employed, how do you ensure that they're well taken care of? Obviously, much depends on the company. But how do you make sure that the employee benefits are actually kicking in? Do you have any checks and measures for that?
Yeah, so there's a constant feedback loop. Today, obviously, it's a little more opaque, but there are points both on. So we have a call center that's at the core of our customer success, where we actually handhold both our customers, which is our business owners, and also the potential job seekers. It's important, I think, at the very start to set the expectations right. If they are unaware that this is the reality, that there are long working hours, that because there's also a bar associated with it, you tend to have to stay a little later. You'll see that once they join, they'll say, "Oh, yeah, I didn't expect these long hours," and they'll tend to bounce. So the I think the initial phase of even identifying and setting the expectations right, and using technology to set the expectations right, is where we've kind of created the profile page. And there's a feedback loop also that goes in. I think when our recruiters are involved, there is a clear mandate that we need people who have particularly either worked in an industry, are open to long hours, are open to certain things, and we're able to then match that and have that as part of everything else. Now that said, this is also one industry where mental health is a huge issue, and you'll see that stress kicks in. Again, you may have everything right when it comes to your organization that you join, because those expectations have been met. But then you suddenly see that Mumbai as a city is way too expensive for you to live in. There's a lot of stress, and therefore there are other points that we need to also solve for. And so what we can do within our limited ability is obviously create this peer group, and have someone that they can call, and make sure that any of their grievances are looked at, and if it's addressable, we actually absolutely work with the business owners to try and kind of fix it.
Right. Okay. Could you talk to me about how your skill training works? We've been talking about it in bits and pieces through the conversation, but yeah, if I could understand how the module works, how you're building it out, what kind of skills are you equipping people with?
Yeah, so basically, CALM along with NRAI have partnered with the Maharashtra Skill State University, and they have a campus in Lonavala. So this is something that we've been piloting with them, and we've actually developed the curriculum for them, keeping in mind restaurants. So we've got there's a quick course that you can do, which is like a 3-month course. There's a 2-year course. There's a 3-year, and Rishi, we're working on the 5-year, I think, right now, right?
Wow.
That's not yet rolled out, the 5-year, but that's currently what we're working on, which is a slightly longer one. That's more of like an MBA in restauranting, although this is something that they wanted to do. But where we are concerned, we need something really quick, fast, turn it out. Now, yeah, so where this becomes interesting also is that the course content and the curriculum is specific to restaurants. So, for example, if you take a chef, what we're going to be teaching these kids coming in is not a specific cuisine, but rather your knife skills and technique, and it's more technique driven because that's transferable very easily to any kind of cuisine. Just to sort of give you an example, and then we've got on the ground training also happening over there because they've got a cafe that they're running, so the students get to work in those cafes. So it's sort of like if you go abroad and you see how most of these culinary courses work. There is a sort of prerequisite to have, not a prerequisite, but you need to have some sort of work X, which is built into, or an internship, which is part of your sort of training program. So this is what we're doing over there, and then we're tying up with the restaurants that are part of NRAI. So these kids can also get an opportunity to work with them. And as part of their internship, they do this sort of, almost every year, they spend some part of their training with that particular restaurant. So they're also being built from a very young stage to eventually become a part of that restaurant.
No, I mean, I absolutely love how holistically you're thinking about this whole thing. Right from someone who's being employed to obviously the employer as well. But Karan, we spoke a little bit about tier 2 and tier 3 cities and how you've been working with recruiters from those cities. Are there any interesting insights or opportunities about what people are looking for in those cities, and how does that differ from, say, what someone might be looking for when they're based in a Bombay or a Delhi?
For the hospitality industry, there is that migratory kind of nature built in. You will always look outside your cities for better opportunities, or if you happen to live in a Mumbai and you have a family home, or you share it with your parents or whatever, it becomes more affordable. Interestingly, we are seeing a ton of demand, and we're able to fill a lot of demand in tier 2, tier 3 cities within Gujarat. So, for example, we've got a huge host of hotels that are opening up, and we're just staffing everybody for them. And this is not just an Ahmedabad or a Surat. We're going into tier 2, tier 3 towns in those sorts of states. We're seeing a lot of demand in Dehradun, in Uttarakhand, because restaurants are just opening up there because the gateway to the Himalayas, huge tourist population. So it's not necessarily that migratory nature will bring you away from your towns into the metros or the tier ones. We are seeing a lot of native demand in these sort of cities that normally don't come to mind. If you see the kinds of brands that are opening in cities like Indore, Nagpur, Raigad, Ranchi, just all over the place, and there is enough local demand for that. But again, the pay scales are different. What a commie one in a Dehradun may earn is different from a commie one in what a Delhi or a Bangalore or a Mumbai might pay. But then you also have to balance that against, okay, what about my cost of living? Does the company provide accommodation? Are meals provided? Is uniform provided? These for the upper echelon of restaurateurs, these are no-brainers. But the bulk of the industry does not think this far ahead. I remember there was this one restaurant out of Goa we staffed. We sent them about 15 people just to sort of run the entire restaurant. They left in a week saying the guy's refusing to give us accommodation. We're not from Goa. We don't know where to live. So then immediately we placed them with better restaurants in Goa who had these policies.
Right.
As we go along, we're learning all these kind of the quirks and these nuances that pop up. But I think the demand in tier two, tier threes in itself is strong enough. I think the pursuit of alternate cities is just personal choice now. It's not really only economic.
Okay, that's super interesting. So far, how many people have been placed, or how many people have used the app, or have been placed via Calm? Do you have
I've
that
lost count.
statistic? Rishi, you're on mute.
It's going up as we speak. The number is increasing as we speak.
Yeah, so we're also getting a couple of partners like Rebel Foods that suddenly has a demand for like 1,000 people.
Right.
McDonald's has come in and said we have X. So we, as an organization now, we're sitting at any time on an order book of about, I would say, if I put it in rupee terms, about 75 to 80 lakhs of commission business on a monthly basis. And we are currently addressing about 30% of that. So, I think there are various other tools that we are except creating, like the WhatsApp communication, that will lead to better engagement and more conversion. So that's going to go up.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to add some more context to that, Smita, we have the visibility on the recruitment manually, what we kind of help with. The matching that takes place on the platform, we are not charging a fee for that. So we charge a restaurant a listing fee. We give you an ad pack. You can advertise for X number of jobs for free, and then post that. You have to pay per post or pay per listing or whatever. Once that match occurs, we are not kind of being incentivized, or we're not taking a commission from there. You get on the platform, you identify your candidate, you schedule the interview, whether you're hired or no. We've got no visibility on that. But typically the HR teams are close to us. They tell us, okay, we've hired somebody. Thank you for helping us out. Alternatively, they'd say, no, we didn't find anybody. We've looked elsewhere, whatever the case may be. So the visibility on the job front that we get, we always get bulk requirements, like Rishi is saying. So we get a couple of these very large organizations who hire, so one of the organizations we're working with hires 3,500 people a week.
Wow.
Right. So it's mind blowing when you look at those sort of statistics, right? Unfortunately, we can't name them, but we also are selective about how do we channel the demand, because again, we are not a recruitment agency.
Yeah.
We are a tech platform, right? So for us, it's important that the platform takes off on its own. We do get involved in what we call the high level hiring. So for instance, we are getting a lot of requests, particularly by hotels, for chefs to be placed overseas, specialty chefs, right? And that's great for us. So we just flash a few profiles out to them and show them how what kind of talent is available, who's an active job seeker, who's come to us, who's on our database. So when we get a requirement, so let's say X hotel comes and says, I need a corporate chef. We're not going to all the hotels and saying, hey, who's the corporate chef over here? We're actually looking at our database and saying, okay, who from our active pool of job seekers is looking for this job? And we match them. And for that, we get, an agent's fee, right? So for us, it's more important that the automation takes off, because our revenue pool is actually more interesting when we look at the ancillary services we provide. So the more people we get on to use early salary, the platform does get a commission from, the revenue that is generated. For more people who come on to do insurance, again, we generate our revenue over there. So for us, as a tech platform, we want to focus on getting people signed up onto the platform, demand coming in and kind of working out and, matching, etc. We want to do less of the manual intervention. So while it is important that we look at how many jobs we have delivered, it is more important that we see how many people are looking for jobs on our platform. So that's been growing steadily over the last, I think, 8 months in existence.
Yeah, and I think the new application that we're launching, which is like the Uber for recruitment, that helps us fill positions that are in remote locations where we would typically not have our feet on street out there already. This aids in that. So our ability to then convert more and get better candidates will only go up from here.
Right. Could you talk to me, Rishi, a little bit about the revenue model and how does that work? I'm guessing Calm is not for profit, but yeah, you can is not for profit, but
Yeah.
you
Well,
can.
I think we're profit with a purpose.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, if I were to kind of say that's how I think I would. It was key for me to actually look at a legacy business. I think one of the things that people kept telling me was, "Hey, you're always building for your South Bombay self." So Scootsie and what I was doing with Ghana and what I was doing with, it's constantly building for you.
Sure.
And I had to get out of my comfort zone and say, while we're seeing this huge kind of surge in the economy now compared to where we were, you're seeing obviously the growth coming from small town India, and the platform obviously has to assist with this next wave of both consumerism that's happening and also growth that's happening on a massive scale. So that kind of in many ways satiated that need to kind of do something that had an impact and had a legacy business. And then obviously as the economy grows, more consumers come back into the workforce, and the ability to then have all of these ancillary services that we can offer them. And if you're a trusted brand to them, then obviously the revenue model is easier. So for us, I think revenue is key, but we want to first make sure that we are successful in our core, which is providing people jobs and providing the right workforce to our business partners. And the ancillary revenue, which is commissions based on certain services, it's commissions based on, say, housing and accommodation and all of that. Is all going to kick in. We know that it's going to kick in. The first core that we're looking at is obviously the placement. And so even today, we have the self-serve platform has a subscription model that's an annual subscription. It's a low, for the NRI, we actually rolled out a special rate of 5,000 per year. And with that, for the first year, actually, they get unlimited job posts. And the goal is to shift behavior, right? So today, the behavior isn't using technology to kind of recruit.
Yeah.
We want that behavior to change, and so the entry point for obviously subscribing had to be really low. If you look at the competition out there, they typically will charge between 50,000 to a lakh for access to a database, and that's priced out for most small medium businesses. So because this required a different kind of approach, we kind of kept it low. And our RPO business, which is the recruitment process outsourcing, we charge between 6 to 8.33% of the salary, and so of the annual salary.
Okay.
So that's a sizable part of our commission revenue today. Yeah.
Fabulous. And how do you think is revolutionizing the hospitality industry? Like what is the larger vision for Calm?
I think it's the first step. Honestly, everything starts with that first step, and so it's early days for us. There's a 3-year plan, there's a 5-year plan. We get into a huddle constantly. We had a huddle on Monday with the core team there. We're meeting again on Friday to actually look at the strategic needs right now and obviously the long-term needs. Obviously the first success parameters that we're looking at is the brand being established as a successful go-to app for placement. That's the core. And as we build that out, obviously then the second part of it, which is the financial inclusion and everything else, becomes core. The skilling is core. But we are bootstrapped today to a certain degree. So we don't also want to take on more than we can chew. So we've kind of identified areas that we've said, let's kind of stick to this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not been as easy as we all set it out to be. So it's easier thought about, and when you kind of have it in play, there are certain things that you realize. There are certain nuances specifically for this industry that I think has hit us in the last year. So there have been times where we've had to rapidly course correct.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where we've had to say, we didn't think about this, so now let's add the tech factor. A large part of the hiring still is very old school. So to move them away to actually using different channels of communication was again an aha moment. We said, no, let's just stick to WhatsApp. While we can drive in a lot of the actual signups into the application, let's have the engagement on channels that they're already used to, right? So I think for us important today to understand that we've taken a step in the right direction. We have the intention and the ability to make this work. Unlike a typical marketplace where there's always a demand and supply problem, is chicken and egg. Here, because we have partners like the National Restaurant Association of India, we have people like the Chocolate Spoon Company. I think that part of having jobs hasn't been a challenge. Having credible partners, people who have multiple locations, people that are hotels, having them on board post jobs has not been a challenge. It's obviously getting the marketing funnel right for the supply, and that's what keeps us up at night. So we're like, how do we continue to improve the quality of our downloads, improve the quality of people who are applying for jobs, and obviously post that the industry itself. How do we aid the industry in becoming a top priority for people that are looking at the job for the first time?
Super. Thank you so much, guys. We're going to go into a little bit of a rapid fire round. So I'm just a little bit of word association. I'm going to say a word or a phrase. First thing that pops to your head, just please answer. Okay.
Rapid fire.
Something no one knows about hiring in hospitality.
You have to pay for
Sometimes
services.
they don't show up.
Okay. What candidates should not do at an interview?
I think speak badly about their previous company.
Okay. One pet peeve you might have as a restaurateur during service, Rachel.
Body odor, always. That's one thing that you can sort of immediately tell.
Okay. One thing you can't stand a diner doing.
Being rude to service staff.
I would like to continue being a restaurateur, so I shall not say anything.
Fair enough. And a piece of advice that you wish someone gave you guys when you were starting out and starting to build Calm.
Oh God, there's a lot.
There's about
We're still learning. We're still learning. I think Rishi, you take this.
We got the advice. We turned down the advice because we thought we would, do it. I think nothing great is easy. I think that's clear that we knew. And, the more times people tell you that, okay, this is something that's an easy idea and you can do it, turns out to be very pedestrian. So we knew we were chewing on something, but you get this right. Obviously it has long-term benefits. So, my long answer to your quick question. I wish, yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Cool. One thing that nobody is thinking about when it comes to the restaurant industry, like an issue that no one's giving enough time.
Profitability.
more government support.
Ouch.
Don't say you're on a fence with us.
Okay, yeah, Rishi, I'd love to hear one thing that you would like restaurants to stop doing.
Poaching, for sure. Yeah, I think that's critical. But also, I think having a short-term view on many things, where you're feeling that immediate gap and not thinking about the longer-term benefits to both your organization and to the industry.
And tipping after service charge, what is the appropriate etiquette? If there is service charge, do you tip or do you not? Or what?
I think that depends on the individual. I mean, if you've had somebody and you've had like a really, really great experience, why wouldn't you want to do it? Just to show the person that you appreciate them.
It's hard enough eliciting service charge.
But I like the way you're thinking.
Thank you so much, Rishi, Rachel, and Karan. This has been a super interesting conversation and I've learned so much. So really, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of your insights. Like, share, and subscribe to the Big Food Energy podcast for more inspirational and important stories from the world of food.